The release of Starfield sent me into a 69-month depression, but I have re-emerged to see if it has more to offer via self-imposed challenges. Between you and me, it's honestly just because I want to make space memes. No! So, come with me on a journey through time and space to see if I can beat Starfield as a pacifist. The rules of this challenge are simple. I intend to beat the game by any means necessary, keeping the in-game stats under the combat status tab of humans, robots, and monsters eliminated at 0. If I can't find a way to keep all of them at 0, then I will attempt to keep them as close to 0 as I can. We start by speedrunning the intro sequence because the opening to this game is a snooze fest. Then we create the most beautiful creation on God's green earth, Pacifist Pete.
What do you think, hon? Roguishly handsome or handsomely roguish?
Then we're off to the first combat section of the game, which is actually one of the most annoying sections for this pacifist challenge. After you talk with Barrett, you have to fend off some Crimson Fleet pirates. Thankfully, we have some friendlies that will help us keep our hands clean. The issue is that the friendlies you have fighting them do very little damage to the enemy pirates, and just run around like chickens with their heads cut off for the most part. Our future robotic companion Vasco is easily the most helpful during this section, but after messing around with a couple different strategies, I found that if you run back inside after the Crimson Fleet ship lands and go back and forth between the indoor cave loading zone, the game will quickly update the enemy's health and they end up dying much faster than if you just waited AFK for the Argo extractors, miners, and Constellation members to defeat them. After the defeat of the pirates on Vectera, Barrett lets us take the frontier as a part of Operation Indigo. And here is where things get tricky. At this point, the game teaches you about space combat mechanics by having multiple Crimson Fleet ships show up to attack you, and the only way to progress past this point in the game is to destroy the ships. Now, normally this would be fine, but there are pirates aboard those ships, and if I blow them to smithereens, then I'm also destroying the pirates aboard. So my initial plan was to use the targeting control system perk the bounty hunter background starts with to disable and board the Crimson Fleet ships, to then let Vasco annihilate the crew, rendering the ship disabled, allowing me to progress without dirtying my hands. Only problem is, Vasco isn't technically your follower at this point in the game, so he refuses to board enemy spacecraft with you. My next idea was to somehow get access to the instigation perk, which lets me force the pirates to fight one another once I board it, allowing me to progress without directly fighting anyone myself. One of the issues with this strategy is that I'd still have to figure out how to take care of the last crew member aboard the ship, but after some testing I realized that I could theoretically get the bad guys to fight each other via the instigation perk until all but one was alive at very low health. Once there was a single pirate left, I would grab one of the toxic explosive barrels on the ship and get the last pirate to shoot it, poisoning themselves, and voila, problem solved. This, of course, is all theoretical at this point, since I'd still need to find a way to farm enough XP to legitimately level up enough to get the instigation skill, which is normally available as early as level 9, requiring a total of 3,730 XP. You can't fast travel anywhere outside of the main quest until after you visit New Atlantis for the first time, which means I needed to find a way to get thousands of XP on the starting planet of Vectera, which you can't build an outpost on without the planetary habitation skill. So I have a small playable area on a planet where no enemies spawn, where I can't build an outpost and have access to limited resources. That's when I realized that there was a second building in the Argos extractor compound that only becomes accessible once you revisit the planet during the quest back to Vectera, and this building has within it a crafting bench, which means if we had access to infinite materials, we could in theory get an unlimited amount of XP via crafting, albeit very slowly. So the question is, how do we get inside this building early, considering the door mechanism is busted at this point in the game? By wall clipping. Basically, if you have a melee weapon in your hand, jump, hold block, and then hold forwards, you will move forwards a short distance at a really high speed. If done at the right distance and frame rate, you can quick save and load during the frames you have high speed and teleport through basically any wall. This gives us access to the bench inside as well as some other random items including Heller's Cutter. So now that we can access the bench, it's just a matter of getting enough materials to level up. Thankfully, the beryllium inside the starting cave respawns about every 2 in-game weeks, and there's another guaranteed cave nearby that has materials that also respawn every 2 weeks. So, it would just be a matter of spending probably 100 plus hours mining and sleeping on your ship until you farmed enough materials to get to level 9 to unlock the instigation skill. Obviously, before diving into this, I wanted to make absolutely sure that this would allow me to get past the ship combat tutorial maintaining my challenge requirements, and that's where another problem arose. For some some reason, Starfield doesn't allow you to board enemy ships unless all other ships are gone or not in combat with you. It doesn't matter how far away you are from other ships, if the game considers you to be in combat, you cannot board. This is an issue because after you beat the first ship, you fight 2 Crimson Fleet ships at the same time, and one cannot be boarded until the other is destroyed, basically making this plan a bust. And if that wasn't enough, I later found out that even if you were able to board both ships and remove the crew, the game still requires you to destroy them yourself or commandeer them. And since you would have to commandeer 2 ships at this point in the game, you would be forced to destroy at least one of them with the pirates on board. So basically, there is no way around destroying ships with people on board during this tutorial section. Feeling demoralized, I started testing random things, which is when I realized that the in-game stat tracker makes no difference between destroying a ship with people on it versus an empty ship. Either way, the game doesn't register any eliminations. So after all of that theory crafting for the very beginning of the game, I made the executive decision that ship destruction would not count against us for the purposes of this challenge, because the game doesn't register any of the crew as being harmed by the player. This obviously made the space combat tutorial a cakewalk, because now I can just blow up all the ships and continue to Crete to finish the first quest. If you have a jump pack at this point from one of the Crimson Fleet members on Vectera and have the jump pack training perk by taking the bounty hunter background, you can skip this entire research facility and jump right to the end.
You gotta be kidding me.
But since I chose the diplomat background for easier access to speech skills, I just ran past everyone. After resolving the encounter with Brogan peacefully, I made my way to New Atlantis to join the ranks of Constellation, a collective of like-minded individuals seeking to uncover the truth behind the greatest mysteries of the universe, filled with all manner of unlikable and annoying characters. Chief among them being the leader of Constellation, Sarah Morgan. Before we set off to become Constellation's errand boy, we make an early visit to Neon to purchase some non-lethal EM weaponry from Ryujin Industries, which will give us the ability to stun enemies. From here, we are basically just following along the main questline of the game, following up on leads to obtain artifacts, starting with the quest The Old Neighborhood, which takes us to Sidonia and then eventually to a ship hijacked by ecliptic mercenaries. This is a good opportunity to showcase why the EM weaponry is useful for this pacifist challenge. Once we board the ship, we are prompted to secure the ship before we can talk to Moira Otero, or however the hell you say his name. Unfortunately, the game doesn't recognize the ship as secure unless all the enemies are eliminated. It's not enough to just knock them all out. The best option to do this is to use our follower, in this case Sarah Morgan, to eliminate them all. If we found a safe spot and AFK'd eventually, due to the fact that Sarah Morgan is invincible, she would eventually win. But she doesn't do very much damage, so if we start by first knocking out all the mercenaries via our EM weapon, and then wake them up one by one by attempting to pickpocket them, Sarah will be able to fight each of them one by one. This will be a common strategy used for this challenge, but sections where you are not allotted the benefit of bringing your followers along end up becoming very tricky to figure out a way to eliminate any necessary hostiles.
Good work. Let's get back to the lodge.
Am I glad to meet whoever you two are? Looks like we're all in one piece. Any day you walk away from, right?
Back to the lodge, shall we?
After collecting our first artifact, we kick Sarah to the curb and trade her for my favorite Constellation member, Sam Coe. Unfortunately for him, he has an insanely annoying daughter that follows him everywhere.
My favorite person in Constellation is Sarah. She's so cool.
I never asked for this.
He's so cool.
We end up in Aquila City with the task to resolve a bank robbery.
If you think you're just gonna walk up here and get us to surrender, you're dead wrong.
I am the one who knocks.
You go tell the marshal we'll come quietly.
We do so peacefully using our silver tongue, and then have to talk to Sam's very reasonable father in order to obtain a secret family heirloom that will lead us to another artifact.
Old people are the greatest. They're full of wisdom and experience.
Sam Coe finally decides to darken our doorstep again.
After rizzing up Sam's father, the map leads us to the Shaw Gang's outpost nearby. We sprint past all of the goons and retrieve the artifact, and then for some reason they all disappear after our out-of-body experience when touching the artifact. The leader of the Shaw Gang shows up and is not happy with us. Thankfully, I'm the Riz Master and convince her to let us go.
Now you got past my crew, who I pay quite handsomely, I might add. Get the hell out of here before I change my mind.
The next Constellation member we are introduced to is a clinically insane religious zealot named Andrasia. Fortunately, our third artifact is in the very same cave we find her within, and after collecting it and having a very awkward heart-to-heart with her, we return to meet Vladimir, the ex-pirate.
I'm an old man, and I'm an old man.
Yes, indeed.
He tells us to visit a planet that gives us space dragonborn abilities, and after flexing our new powers in front of everyone, we return to Vectera to check up on Barrett, who, as fate would have it, has been kidnapped by pirates.
Hey. Out here.
Holy shit.
You're all free to go.
If you are free soon, could we talk?
After tracking him down and resolving the disagreement with his kidnapper, Matsura, an old rich man named Walter invites us to Neon to meet with a seller of another artifact. Before meeting with the seller, however, we first visit Walter's wife.
My name is Skylar White-Yo.
Who sends us on a mission of corporate espionage. Upon returning to update the old man on our operation, I am forced to eavesdrop on some of the cringiest writing I have ever heard in a video game.
Maybe what I've always dreamed of.
I can tell. I can see your mind racing.
I haven't even stopped to ask you how you're doing.
I'm fine. The board complains, I assure them. There's the occasional assassination attempt.
So, you don't need anything from me then?
I don't.
Am I just some useless stargazer? You would have been
With that out of the way, we contact the seller and yoink the artifact, only to be accosted by a henchman of the original owner of the artifact, Nicholas Slayton. I then sneak into Slayton Aerospace, run past all the bad guys, and tell him that it was just a prank, bro. Slayton then leaves the fate of the artifact thief to me, and I swiftly put him in the slammer. Once we leave Neon, we are introduced to Starfield's true antagonists, the Starborn. They tell us to hand over all our Skittles and they will let us live. Without skipping a beat, I say hell nah and jump out of there. After a quick debrief on whether the Starborn are aliens or gods, I was informed that Constellation's telescope, the Eye, was in need of repair. So the whole gang headed up and got to work.
Cooper, what are you doing?
Docking.
After I finished helping out the crew, Vladimir blamed me for everything and then sent me and Sarah to a ship called the Scow to inquire about another artifact. The owner of the ship and the artifact is a man named Captain Petrov. He's a real strange guy, but if you're a silver-tongued savant like myself, you can easily convince him to show you the artifact. Steal it in front of him and beat the crap out of him until he lets you leave the ship without retaliation. Or you can just use the instigation skill to get his entire crew to betray him.
Gonna bury you.
Wait! I surrender! I surrender! Don't kill me!
Upon return to the lodge, we are faced with a choice. Perhaps the most important choice of our lives. We learn that the Starborn have attacked the Eye and are on their way to the lodge to take our artifacts. The choice falls upon me. Who do I save? Sam Coe, the coolest space cowboy in the universe, or Sarah Morgan, the most annoying human being of all time? Sarah Morgan is dead. I don't know how it happened, I don't know why it happened, but it wasn't my fault. The ordeal with the Starborn left the entirety of New Atlantis and Constellation shook to their core. The next step in discovering the truth behind the artifacts involves us going on a religious expedition to learn about something called Unity.
Unity.
1, 2, 3, 4.
At the end of this goose chase, we once again find the Starborn. This time, they are in a better mood than last time, and instead of attacking us, they invite me aboard their ship. Once aboard, they reveal their true identities to be an old man and an even more annoying version of Sarah Morgan, and tell me to go to the moon and then to the old NASA launch site to discover the truth behind the invention of grav drive technology. Then they ambush me to make a moral judgment on whether or not the artifacts should be shared. I chose to side with the hunter because anyone is better than Sarah. Not that it really matters who I side with, but because the one you side with ends up helping you in future encounters, it was a good idea to side with one of them instead of continuing past this point on my own. To get the last artifact, we make our way to the Nishima research station. Up until this point, 95% of the quests have been possible to complete whilst avoiding eliminating any hostiles ourselves by simply running past everything, or by stunning targets and having our follower take care of them for us. Unfortunately, the security at the research station refused to let our follower inside, which could potentially make things a bit problematic.
I'm going to have to ask your friend to wait out now.
The Entangled quest, which we are on, is mostly straightforward. We just have to shift between two timelines, one where the station exploded and another where a hero named Raphael sacrificed himself and saved everyone. In the timeline where everyone is alive, it's smooth sailing. But at the start of the quest, when shifting into the exploded timeline, you have to eliminate monsters called Cataxi. And in this one room, there are two of them, and they both need to be eliminated before the quest updates to the next step. I tried stunning both of them at the same time, but the quest wouldn't update under those conditions. So my next idea was to get the Xenosociology perk to rank 3 in order to get aliens to fight each other. I had more than enough levels available at this point, but I needed to complete the challenges of the skill in order to rank it up, which involved running around and pacifying a bunch of alien creatures. My plan was to hopefully have them both attack each other and have one survive at low HP, and then use a poison canister or something to eliminate the last one. What ended up working was instigating one to eliminate the other, and then making the surviving alien flee, which for some reason updated the quest and let me progress. And that was basically the only tricky part of this quest outside of needing to run past a bunch of aliens and robots. There are a couple sections where you need to eliminate more Cataxi, but by that point you have Raphael with you, and provided you stun the aliens one by one, he can take care of them. At the end of the quest, you get to choose which timeline to essentially save, either Raphael or the timeline where most of the researchers survived. There is a way to save both, but since Raphael is my boy and the lead research lady annoyed me by talking about some whack magic timeline, I decided to let everyone burn except my boy. With all the artifacts collected, the last step is to head to the Buried Temple to access Unity. When you grav jump to Masada, the planet where the Buried Temple is located, you get into a space fight with the Starborn. For a pacifist run, most dogfights can easily be avoided by grav jumping away as soon as you travel to a new planet. But for this fight, we really have no choice. Thankfully, we have the hunter at our side to help us out. Once we make it to the Buried Temple, it's a matter of running around and letting the hunter and our follower take care of all the Starborn Guardians. My job was simply running around, stunning them, and throwing explosive barrels at them in hopes someone would blow them up to do a little bit more damage. Then we have to go through a bunch of trials, revisiting moments in the past. None of them are particularly difficult to get through passively, except for when you revisit the Scow and Captain Petrov. You need to get his private quarters key without eliminating anyone in the room. The solution I found was to stun all of the hostiles in the room and then pickpocket the keys from Petrov while he was stunned. The final obstacle is when you need to fight the last Starborn Guardian alongside a bunch of your duplicates. The duplicates copy your loadout when you enter the cave, so I stripped down and removed all my weapons. What I didn't realize is that the game also pulls from your favorite weapons list. Not a big deal, but all my duplicates are running around with mining lasers that did basically 0 damage. You just need to run around and pray your followers take out the priority target and not focus your duplicates. With all the Guardians eliminated, we just have to deal with the alternate reality Sarah Morgan. Normally, I'd have no quarrels with letting my allies take care of her, but it seemed only fitting to end the last potentially hostile encounter in a peaceful way.
No. Maybe I don't.
So I rizzed her up and entered the Unity.
What happens now?
You made it. I hope you're enjoying the view.
After a conversation with my beautiful self, I entered the Unity and the challenge was finished. This run made me realize the amount of copy-pasted main quest missions that are nothing more than go to location, enter cave, obtain artifact, and leave. They kind of just feel like filler quests scattered between the more fun, in-depth ones like the artifacts you have to collect on Neon or the Scow.